Good evening, everyone. I wish you enjoyed your week. Today we will continue our story, The Twin Bandits. Let's waste no time and start part 8. The briefcase. Doug's shooting of the man in Torquay brought to the fore some fundamental disagreements between the Morgan brothers. Doug had always considered himself the better carpenter, better with girls, and their father's favorite. Doug felt that Peter now saw himself as the better bank robber, and was intent on rubbing it in. For his part, Peter felt like his brother was just along for the ride, enjoying the fruits of his efforts, while pulling fewer jobs and bringing in less money. This inspired Peter's nickname for Doug, Parasite. He felt that Doug lacked commitment. "It was a business," Peter told me. "Not a legal business, but it was still a business." Peter was meticulous to the point of obsessive when preparing for a robbery, scouting targets for hours at a time and repeatedly assembling and disassembling his rifle in the dark like a commando. As Peter saw it, Doug had never taken anything seriously in his life. In their teens, they'd been evenly matched in most sports, but Peter had the edge in track and field. During one race in New Zealand, Doug unexpectedly got out to a huge lead, and Peter exhausted himself catching up. Then, halfway through the race, Doug stopped and walked off the track. "It was all just a big joke to him," Peter told me. Doug's lackadaisical attitude clashed with Peter's desire to expand their criminal enterprise to include higher-stakes bank jobs. The last TB Peter ever hit was in the small dairy town of Mafra. It was the second half of a double robbery. Doug had struck a betting agency in Hayfield 25 minutes earlier. Peter, wearing his mask, entered the caged area behind the tabs counter and collected the money from the cash drawers. But when the manager opened the floor safe, it was empty. "Where'd you hide it?" asked Peter, rummaging through a waistbin to see if any money was stashed inside. The manager just smiled. Reading the papers afterward, Peter concluded that after Doug's Hayfield heist, the police had notified all tabs in the area that the after-dark bandit was on the prowl. Peter was less annoyed by the measly haul, a mere $463, than by the feeling that he'd been outsmarted. 2 weeks later, eager to show the police who was boss, Peter parked his motorcycle outside Heathcote's CBC Bank, donned his mask, and ran inside carrying a sawed-off shotgun and a large bag. "I have to rob a bank because the coppers have got the tabs covered," he told the frightened staff. He seized $15,106 in cash. Carrying the stolen money out of the Heathcote CBC, Peter spotted a man seated in a car wearing a blue Victoria police uniform. Peter, still in his mask, dragged the man out of the car and frisked him for a gun. "You're a cop," Peter said. "No," lied the off-duty constable, terrified. Peter threw the man's keys into a nearby field, then climbed onto his motorcycle and sped off down Heathcote's main street. Soon after, flush with cash from the bank heist, the Morgan twins went to the races at Ballarat, a provincial city in the gold-rich Central Highlands of Victoria. They drove Peter's valiant Charger, which he'd recently souped up to outrun the cops. "It was my pride and joy, obviously," Peter told me. In the boot of the car was a briefcase containing 2 shotguns and thousands of dollars in cash. Before the races started, Doug vanished. Peter couldn't find him in the restroom or anywhere else he searched. He'd never known his brother to skip a race, so Peter panicked, worrying that the police might have nabbed him. He decided to leave, but walking through the parking lot, he realized that the cops might be waiting at his car. He crept between vehicles, trying to remain unseen, until he came to his spot. The Valiant was gone. Peter took a taxi back to his house, where he found his car parked with the door and trunk open. The briefcase was gone, and there was a note on the steering wheel. "Thanks, bro." Doug had stolen the car by having a copy of Peter's key cut the previous day. "My greatest job," Doug told me. "I robbed the robber." For 3 days, Peter said, he hunted Doug around Victoria, prepared to kill him. He drove to every motel he could find. "I'm looking for my twin brother. He looks like me," he told each proprietor. "There's been a death in the family, and I can't contact him." Doug told me that he robbed his brother because he was fed up with Peter calling him parasite. Plus, he wanted to prove that he could get the better of his twin. "I showed him who's the real master," Doug said. A few days after disappearing, Doug called Peter. "We need to talk," he said. "You're a scumbag," Peter replied. Still, the brothers agreed to meet. When they sat down at a pub in Melbourne, according to Doug, he handed over Peter's gun and half the money from the boot of his car. As Peter tells it, Doug had already spent it all and slid him an empty briefcase. Doug explained that he'd been at a motel in the town of Sale. Peter hadn't checked it because it was next to a police station. The incident strained the already volatile relationship between the brothers, yet they continued their criminal partnership. Despite a mutual hatred, they were the last remaining members of the original gang of 4, and neither could simply walk away. This is for today. I hope you have enjoyed this part. See you soon with another exciting part of our story.